Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video on this channel, and in today's video I will show you how you can gather the user location and display it in your application. I also want to thanks to the channel members because your support means a lot to me, and thank you for the coffees that you offer me every month. And now grab your coffee and let's go into Android Studio. Okay, now we can go into build.gradle.kts to see what dependencies do we need, and the dependencies are the Google Mobile Services, which gives us the location and the accompanied permissions. So let's go in the libs versions.toml, and as you can see, these are the versions, these are the dependencies, and the versions are up here. So the company's permission is 0.36.0 and the GMS version is 21.3.0. Also, you will have the repository in the description, and you can copy and paste the dependencies in your application. Now we need to go into manifest and Android manifest.xml and make sure that we add the dependencies that we need, and we need to access the user approximate location and precise location. I'm saying both of them because user can choose if he wants to give us the approximate location or the precise location, and the precise location is the course location and the approximate one is the fine location. Now we can collapse the manifest and also close this, and we are back on the main activity. Now we can go down here and start creating the location manager. So let's say location manager, and in the parentheses we need the context and we need the fused location provider client. And from the fused location provider client, we will get the last location that it's available to us. So let's open the curly brackets and let's create a suspend fun, and this is called get location, and this returns a location object that is nullable. Open the curly brackets, and the function is suspend because we will launch a suspend cancelable routine, and with that we will fetch the user location from the fused location provider client. So let's start by checking if the user has granted the permissions. So let's say has granted find location permission, and now we need to use context compact and check self permission, pass the context, and now we need to pass the permission that is Android.manifest and permission, and we are checking for the file location, and now we need to say package manager dot permission granted to check if the permission is granted, and let's also check for the course location. So has granted course location permission, and we are doing the same thing. So check self permission, use the context, pass the permission that we are checking for, and check if the package manager permission granted. Now we need to get the location service, and after that we will check if the user has an internet connection or has the GPS enabled to see if we can gather some informations about their location. So let's say location manager is equal to context.get system service, and let's say context.location service as location manager from the Android.location. Now we need to check if is GPS enabled. So let's say enabled, and to do that we will use the location manager is provider enabled, and in the provider let's say location manager dot network provider or location manager is provider enable location manager dot GPS provider. So as I said, we need to check if the user has network or it has GPS. Now we can go down here and we need to check if the GPS is not enabled, and let's negate this too. So let's say location, not location manager, sorry, has granted course location or has granted find location. We return null. So if the user does not have the GPS enabled and permissions are not granted, we simply return a null location. Now let's go down here and we will return a suspend cancelable coroutine, and let's get the cont. And now we can simply say fuse location provider client last location and use an apply block. Now if the operation is complete, we need to check if it's successful or not. So for that we can say is successful and also an else block, and if it's successful we can say cont resume and let's send the result. Let's import the extension function, and if it's not successful we simply resume with null, and if we fetch the user location we can return because we don't have anything to do because we already gathered the location. We can also have an success listener in which we do the same thing. So result, add on failure listener, we return null, and if the coroutine is cancelled we can simply say cont cancel. Now we can go back into the main activity and create the location manager. So let's say location manager is equal to remember location manager, and now we can pass the context. So let's get the context. So local context dot current and pass it here, and the fuse location provider client, we need to say location services dot get fused location provider client and pass the context. Let's also remove the qualifier name. Now we need to create the list of the permissions that user should accept. So let's say location permissions, and this is equal to remember multiple permission state, and now we need to pass a list, so list of, and now we can simply say okay, Gemini already auto completed this, so let's also annotate this with experimental permissions API. Now we need one more thing, and this is the location variable, so we will update this when we fetch the location. So by remember mutable state of null, and let me import and set this as a nullable location. And now let's create the screen, so we can simply create a column and let's use a modifier to make this fill the whole screen. Modifier fill max size. Let's also center the content, so let's start with vertical arrangement center, with horizontal alignment center horizontally. And now we can use the location with unlet to check if it's not null, and we can pass it here. So text is equal to it dot latitude and it dot longitude. We can also increase the font size, so let's say font size 32 sp, and let's make this bold, and let's put it on a new line. And the last thing we need to do is the button that fetches the user's location. So let's say button on click, let it empty until we add the text. Text is get my location, and here we need to check if the user granted the permissions, and if he didn't grant the permissions we will request them. So let's say location permissions. Okay, location permissions, all permissions granted, or location permissions should show rationale, and we simply say location permissions launch multiple permission requests, and otherwise we simply assign a new value to the location. So location is equal to location manager get location. And I forgot to use the coroutine scope, so let's create the coroutine scope is equal to remember coroutine scope, and let's launch a coroutine here. So coroutine scope launch and put it inside. before testing the application, I noticed that I forgot to add the negate sign before the location permissions are granted, because we need to show the dialog when the user did not accepted the permissions. Now we are good to go, so let's run the app and see how it works. Okay, so let's click on get my location and it should show the permission dialog, and we want to give the precise location and while using the app. And let's click again on get my location, and as you can see, it shows up my location. And I hope that you like this video, and if you want to support me with a coffee, make sure to join the channel members, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.